will not be here in the last week of November for budget deliberations, but why do you think zero might be fading away?
Well, you know, Calgary has had, over the last several years, by far, the lowest tax increases, in fact, tax decreases of any major city. And it was the right thing to do during this economic downturn. But we have been falling behind inflation and growth for many, many years now. And there comes a point, as I've been warning for many years, where you're actually cutting to the bone. And so I would really encourage those who are running for council to be very thoughtful about their platform as it comes to budget. Because even getting to zero will be very, very difficult, and getting below zero I don't even think will be possible. Unless you want to get in a situation where next year you're going to have to do a 10 or 12% increase just to catch up, and nobody wants that.
What does that look like in terms of services then? Does it become very noticeable in some places, or is it just across the board?
Yeah, we've lost the ability to do across the board, so this really is about stopping doing things. And you know, there's always things on the list. Do we stop having a sailing school, even though that pretty much pays for itself? To find $1 here or $1 there, do we actually get rid of services that people really value? And I'm obviously not in that place where I say, let's start cutting services. Quality of life matters. And we have to actually pay people fairly and decently, and we have to be able to provide services that have people wanting to live here.
How significant is that to get that message from the city manager this morning? I mean, as the person who's sort of in charge of the organization, is he basically saying there is a breaking point?
Yeah, it was important to hear that today because, you know, city administration will do what we tell them to do. And I thought it was important for them to hear that because, frankly, when we came up with these cut targets in 2019, it was pre-COVID, and the first year of the target was very specific. And the second year was pretty hand-wavy. It was like, and about this for the second year. And we shouldn't chase a number, we should chase the best possible government.
In terms of the changes to OSIF that committee approved today, what do you think that will help enable in terms of what CEP presented?
As the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund has gone through its first couple of years, one of the things we've learned is that we can partner better with folks who are already doing these kinds of investments. And so right now we have a request for proposal out for what we call a fund of funds, which means that part of OSIF's money will go into a pool with other people's money. There'll be professional folks determining how to invest that, and we may even get a return. Right now, OSIF's money is just for grants. We don't get anything back, even if the company is phenomenally successful. And this is an opportunity for us to participate in the upside as well.
I'm not sure I understand though, why do we need somebody else? Why can't OSIF set aside 10 million or 15 million of what it has left and simply say we need to change the rules a bit to try and get some of those 50% of the applicants who aren't eligible currently?
It's straight up leverage. We think that if we can put 10 million in, we can probably attract some number, call it 20, 30, 40 million more into the fund, and the fund will just go further then.
From the start, OSIF, the idea was, hey, provincial government, if you'd like to put into this fund, add to our $100 million, but that hasn't happened.
Yeah, the province instead decided to put a bunch of money into the Alberta Enterprise Corporation, which is similar to OSIF, and go on their own. However, we have another request for proposal out right now, which is what we call an ecosystem request. In other words, how do we really want to shift the innovation system in Calgary, and who wants to run that? They have a very similar request going in at the same time. So I imagine there's going to be lots of opportunities to partner.
Is this the first linkage that was spoken about this morning with Alberta Enterprise? That this has finally come to pass, that they're working together?
Yeah, we've been very open with them. We share files. We've done stuff like that from the beginning. But this is the first kind of potential for, and I don't want to say it's in place because it's not, but the first potential formal partnership.
On a very different topic, there's been some discussion recently about the need for potentially more vaccination clinics in East Calgary, East Calgary. Is the city working with the province to try to speed that up, or
Yes.
What's the situation with that?
Yes, the province has not yet made a policy decision on pop-up clinics. But just this morning, I note that the vaccine take-up rate in Calgary is very variable, depending on geographic zone. And the zones in East Calgary from north to south tend to be lower than other parts of the city. Also, Central Calgary, downtown Calgary is lower. So the idea is that if we can find ways to do pop-ups to make it more convenient for people, I believe we should do that. And we're just waiting on some guidance from the province on what that will look like.
What about expanded hours? Would that help?
Yeah, now that we've got lots of supply, one of the challenges is, do we have enough people to deliver the doses? And we're also looking at ways to improve that. So for example, we're summer now, and so any students in any sort of healthcare program could probably be trained up quite quickly to deliver the doses, so we should be looking at programs like that. We have a lot of conversations going on with the province about this now.
What do you attribute that range of difference geographic zones to? Is it language? Is it people are busy working? Is it the hours of clinics?
I think it's shift work more than anything else. You know, for a lot of folks, you know, you'll take the appointment whenever you get it, and you can afford to take a couple hours off work and just go get it done. And although we do have policy that allows you to get time off work to get your vaccination, it's not always practical or easy to do that if you're running your own business, or if you know you're the only one at the counter at the store. You can't always just say, I gotta go for 3 hours and get my vaccine. So it's about going to people where they live and making it easy for them.
I wanted to ask you about the housing item. People might find that very hard to understand, the different tracks there.
It was very confusing.
But we're seemingly online to get a fairly good size increase in the number of units. Can that be done without a cost to the city?
Yeah, so the idea is that we want to be able to not leave federal and provincial money on the table. And so sometimes we look for money, one-time money within the city, non-tax money within the city. This is a little bit different. Because these are mixed income models where some people are paying higher rent and some people are paying lower rents, they're pretty self-sufficient. And so the idea was that if we take on a small mortgage to cover part of that, either we'll get some grant funding to pay down the mortgage, or the rents will cover the mortgage, so it's not actually coming back to the city's budget. That's the idea that we're going to try with, starting with the project in Rundle.
So if council approves, we could borrow up to that 15.5, but it has nothing to do with property taxes or
That's
reserve
right.
funds or anything.
That's
else.
right.
It's just
Calgary Housing Corp will pay that down themselves. Now, it'd be better for them not to have that debt, because then ultimately the rent will be lower. But they want to get started and then search for ways to pay down that mortgage.
Sorry, was that all provincial leveraging?
Provincial and federal, I
It is
think.
federal as well.
Yeah. Federal, I don't think there was much in those particular projects. Okay.
One more question. Minister McIver recently said that they're ready to take on the next step of Deerfoot work and a P3 model. Any concerns from you about that potential for tolls?
Well, I haven't heard anything about tolls, and the province has used P3 models a lot. The idea of a P3 model basically is that you don't pay up front, but you pay over time. So right now the maintenance on Stoney and Deerfoot, which are provincial roads, is done by a private contractor. I haven't seen the numbers to see if that's cheaper or more expensive than the city doing it. All of that said, the strangest thing about this RFQ is that it said improvements could include, and then it had a big long list of improvements. I've never seen an RFQ quite like that, because that seems to be leaving a lot of room open for the private proponents. And I'm really interested in which of those they prioritize and which of them they want to do first, because that list that they put there is way more than the amount of money they've set aside.
If that full list was completed by 2026, would that then set the stage for handing Deerfoot back to the city?
I mean, maybe. I very clearly said to the province that if you want to give it back, you got to fix it first. And that seems to be what they've been doing, which is great. Because look, if they can get all of those things done, that is actually a generational change on some of Calgary's most awful choke points, not just for people traveling to and from work and where they need to go, but also for goods movement through the city. So, you know, that's improvements in Anderson and Glenmore, a widening of the road in the north to prevent the backups that happen every afternoon rush. It's all very good. And if they can move forward on it, that would be a good thing.
Or if they can only do 2 or 3 of those in this go round, the city would not be taking it back.
That would not be my plan if I were in this chair. All right, thanks everybody.